scale. This is Norberto from Incident. I'll let him introduce himself in a second as well, but excited for everyone to be here and to chat about this. So yeah, just to introduce myself really fast. I'm Advit, one of the co-founders of Pylon. I do a lot of our post-sale stuff, so that's customer support, customer success, and engineering. And we've been using Slack since the beginning of the company. Obviously, we try to help other companies scale Slack support, and I honestly cannot imagine us not having kind of chosen that way of interacting with our customers. It's kind of scary to think about what would happen if we were not talking to our customers in that way. Norberto, I don't know if you feel the same way, but yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself as well and Incident in a second.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go for it. Just to do a quick one line about Pylon. Pylon is the all-in-one kind of AI native support platform for B2B. So we help a lot of businesses like Incident basically manage the way they interact with their customers. Oftentimes that's intaking conversations from a variety of different places you might talk to them, like Slack or Microsoft Teams or WhatsApp or Telegram, and then give you a way to manage all these conversations, get them to the right people, get them answered, generate documentation off of them, and do kind of all of these different post-sales workflows. So yeah, and Norberto, you want to talk about Incident and yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Norberto. I'm VP of Engineering here at Incident, and I've been fortunate enough to also lead the technical support team for the past year, which has been awesome. And for those that have never heard of Incident IO, I would say we'd call ourselves an incident management platform, but in the end of the day, we just help you find, fix issues that you might be having. So we page people at 2 a.m. so that you can solve your issues. We help you figure out what's going on in an incident, sometimes through the use of AI, sometimes not. Help communicate with your customers through status pages. So think of us as like handling incidents in the end of the day. That's us.
Cool, makes sense. And yeah, we use Incident as well for managing our incidents. So that's awesome. Maybe to kick it off, yeah, like Slack support is like a newer concept, so to speak, maybe in the last like 4 or 5 years. And just to clarify what it is for people, essentially a lot of folks typically used to use Slack as a way to talk to people within your company. It's like how you message your coworkers or like organize around projects. But post-pandemic, especially, a lot of people started talking to their customers on Slack because everyone is now kind of using these platforms. And so people started now, yeah, opening up shared channels with their customers and having conversations between companies. And the trend kind of took off, and now lots and lots of people are doing this. But I'm curious, why did you guys decide to like talk to your customers in that way? Why not just email everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in the end of the day, it's just about meeting customers where they're at. And I think nowadays with like rich communication platforms, customers are already in Slack, or they are in Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. And so why make them go through another medium? And I think that was super important to us. I think we shouldn't make the customer try to follow our processes. We should just get as close to where they live as possible. I think that's a much richer experience, but we can go into that. But that's why we don't just use email, although we do use email as well. But our focus is definitely where the customer is.
That makes sense. And so how do you then distinguish, like today, do you open a Slack channel with every customer that you get or every prospect, or who gets it, who still do you use email with? And yeah.
Yeah, so I would say the vast majority of our customers, we have Slack channels with them. And we're talking on the thousands now. But the only ones that don't really make sense, or even though we still support over email to a large degree, just because honestly the support is low volume. It's the free plan and Teams plan, and even then, depending on the situation, we might open exceptions. But for the most part, yeah, we're in Slack with our customers.
Got it. Cool. That makes sense. And then what do you feel like is, yeah, if you were to summarize the benefit other than makes sense kind of conceptually to meet customers where they are, but like, what do you feel like it really happens when you're able to like talk to customers in Slack versus over email or other ways you might have done it previously?
Yeah, it's just more natural. I think there's an almost like a more human, instinctive, like I'm just talking with another person. And I think when you go through a ticketing system, almost like over email, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like there's something like there's a vacuum in between you and the customer,
Sure.
and in Slack it just doesn't.
Yeah, it makes sense. I sometimes like to frame it as like you're basically like the vendor is technically supposed to be, especially in B2B, as an extension of the team,
Yeah,
extension of
yeah,
like kind of the team you're selling to is how I like to think about it. And then you almost like a message from incident shows up, like the incident team shows up right next to like the DM with your boss, for example, because it's like the same level of importance, or you want to be the
yeah,
same level of importance. So that makes
yeah.
sense. And then do you make a shared Slack channel with every prospect as well, or is it just customers and but just post sale, or like how do you think about like the life cycle of kind of the relationship, and whether like all the conversations are happening there, or it's like only post
That's a great
sale?
question. Yeah, we don't like, regardless if it's a prospect or a customer, we always think about these things as building a relationship with another company and with the people of that company.
Sure,
And I think that's an important distinction because it goes from transactional to how do we make this work for both of us.
sure,
And once you do that, I think like you just get a lot more out of it as a customer, but also as, to put it in raw terms, like as a vendor. Um, and so yeah, like the for sure.
nice. Us too. Yeah, we end up like opening channels right after we qualify someone on a demo. We open like a Slack channel with them, and actually, honestly, speeds up the sales cycle a lot as well. Even though like you wouldn't expect that being a benefit really, but
Yeah,
yeah, just people are just more excited to talk, and they'll like respond in 10 minutes instead
yeah.
of like taking a day or two. So that's been awesome for us as well.
In
What
the
do you
in the
do? Like, oh, go for it. Go
Oh,
for it.
sorry.
Sorry.
I was gonna say in the beginning, typically when there's a prospect, we we're more engaged through like customer success managers
Sure.
and account representatives, sometimes engineering, where we're exploring a thing and engineering is an important part of it.
Sure.
And having the Slack channel just means that it's so easy for everyone that needs to be
Sure.
involved in one place and go through that. So
Sure.
yeah, we do that for prospects. We do that for customers. Sometimes we do it even after we lose a prospect. We're still
Sure.
navigating the conversation because it's a relationship. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's important.
That makes sense, and on that point, I guess, like, what are the other roles that are, like basically, is everyone on your team in this channel, or do you just keep it to a certain set of people? Do you cycle them out as, like, the customer life cycle progresses, or how do you kinda think about that?
No, we see it as like you're responsible for your own, almost like your own Slack hygiene. If you're
Sure.
in a channel and you don't need to be there anymore, sure, you're free to leave. But we don't try to ring fence people from customers.
Mhm.
I love the fact that we actively don't. Just
Yeah.
if you want to be in a customer channel, be there. Some customers, of course, out of either compliance or however their needs are, they might go, "Hey, we need a subgroup of Incident IO to be
Mhm.
approved in this channel," and we do that. And
Got it.
yeah, but for the most part, no, we can all be there.
Got it, makes sense. So you're having both, like, yeah, support, like, almost like troubleshooting conversations in there, but are you having other conversations as well? As pre-sale, I guess you might be having commercial conversations, or like, yeah, are there like all types of conversations going on in there, or like how do you try to restrict it to like focus
We
on
don't
something in
we don't try
specific?
to restrict it. We don't try to
Okay,
restrict it, but oftentimes they are separate, just out of
sure,
the like, let's keep them separate. Sometimes they're different people. The
sure,
folk doing the buying are not the same people using the product,
yeah,
and so naturally it becomes separate. Um,
yeah,
but we
makes
try
sense.
to keep people in the same place.
Yeah, it makes sense. For us, similar, and then it's also been useful where, for example, it might be post sale. Someone might like have some security question, and support team might not know the answer, or CSM might not know the answer, and then kind of we can bring in like someone on our
Yeah,
security team to come answer. And so same with like legal stuff often, where we just like kind of ad hoc have the right people there to answer the question, and then keep going. That makes
yeah.
sense. And then when you don't like, you mentioned like the team plan, and maybe like you kind of segmenting your customer base in terms of determining maybe who gets a Slack channel. I'm curious, like, what if people don't use Slack? What do you do then? Is there, yeah, what's like the workflow for you there? And do you feel like there's an impact almost to the customer if they don't use Slack in terms of the experience that they might get from you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We try to ensure that the experience that they get is basically as good as we can make it,
Sure.
regardless of the medium. But if they don't have Slack, we typically do it over email. uh, we plug. I mean, um, the we plug our all of our. I think it's help at incident.io email into Pylon, and so they all arrive at Pylon, and we can talk about that a bit more later. But
Sure.
the we just navigated in the same with the same care as any other
Sure.
customer. But I
Yeah.
think the experience becomes different from the customer point of view
Sure.
because the medium is just different. And I
Yeah.
personally find Slack much easier. We've had that, right, with between
Yeah.
incident and Pylon, where you need something, you'll just jump on the channel. I can see
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Engineers can see it. Yeah, it's much better.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then um, we talked about, yeah, what types of people are in these channels, and how did you think about basically like the like a lot of folks end up saying like when you start getting like 100 or 200 channels or whatever number it is for specific people, you're like just feel overwhelmed on the inside that you have
Uh-huh.
so many channels. I guess, did you reach that point, or do you feel like you haven't reached that point yet and you feel like you will, or how do you think about that? Like, do you even today register that you have like at that, like, thousands of channels, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the the way we manage it is leave it to the person to manage it. That's the honest answer. Like we don't
Sure.
put too much emphasis on it. I, funnily enough, I was chatting with Katie, who's joining ours to lead our support team, about how to manage like Slack
Hmm.
effectively. And it was quite funny. Like I was literally just showing my sidebar in Slack on like, here's how I
Yeah.
organize my Slack.
Yeah.
And so uh, I don't think it's overwhelming because you end up with this with this focus on what you want to focus on. And so, for example, when there is a customer that is a design partner for us, I just
Hmm.
create a sidebar for me to pay attention to those customers because they're giving us high quality feedback, and I want to
Sure.
make sure that if they're one of our vendors, I'm also giving them high quality feedback. And and then you have the kind of like the diminishing returns, right? Where
Sure.
one sometimes I do these once every 2 days or every week, where I go and kind of like go through a bunch of the channels and try to spot check like what's happening and whatnot.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. And then, yeah, to jump into like a little more of the scaling part as well, or maybe to wrap up, like in terms of the early days of Incident, like, did you guys? Yeah, it sounds like you start. Did you start with offering all customer Slack channels, or like what was kind of the starting support motion or the starting way you're talking to customers? And then, at what point did you like feel like it was like getting out of hand and you needed like more either process or tooling or explicit thinking about it to figure out how to manage it?
Yeah. I think it probably so we started with Slack, like getting customers as close to us as possible
Uh
from the
huh.
get go. It was just a
Yeah.
natural fit for how the company operated. Which, by the way, I
Yeah.
wasn't here at that point in time,
Hmm.
but the I think the maybe the stressors appeared at the same time that we started hiring support.
Sure.
Because in the beginning you have everyone doing support because you're a startup, you just have 10, 15 people. Um,
Yeah.
but then you go into, okay, well, now that we have people dedicated to this, how do we kind of self-organize and how do we structure this?
Hmm.
And so that's where it kind of, you have to think a bit more about structure and tooling, and kind of like mature how you approach Slack
Sure.
beyond just responding in Slack, right?
Right. Makes sense. And yeah, as part of that maturing process, I guess the pain points, it sounded like, yeah, you started feeling it when you hired support people and they had to like basically figure out how to like operate in this new way. I'm curious, like, if there were any like other side effects of basically growing number of customers. You guys are scaling fast. You still want to stay close to all your customers. Like, it's almost this like, natural crossroads usually for most people. Where it's like I can't both be growing really fast and having more and more customers and stay close to all of them. So like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a world of like difficult trade-offs, but for the most
Sure.
part, I actually think it's possible. I
Sure.
the time and time again, I will speak with someone that says, "Well, now it's getting really hard to scale. Like, I don't think this is going to work for the next scale
Right.
problem," and it just does. Like, you actually don't need to change it. And I think in that regard, tooling based in Slack in terms of communicating with customers has panned out to work quite well and to scale quite well.
Nice.
The tooling, in this case, like Pylon, but could
Yeah.
be other tooling. Like the 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 tooling is important to manage that,
Hmm.
but the fact that it is based in Slack, I think, is a win. Like that part has scaled. Like we just
Yeah.
have not really seen problems with scaling that bit.
Cool. That's great to hear. And then, yeah, in terms of just for so people can understand what is the scale we're talking about. Like for some people, have like 20 Slack channels, the customers, and they're like very concerned that the next 10 they add is like really going to be tough for them to keep up with. And other people have totally different definitions. Yeah, if you're comfortable sharing, like, what does the scale look like in terms of like number of channels you're operating, say?
At this stage, I think I'm just gonna put it as 1,000 plus.
Yeah.
Like it's in the thousands, not even on the hundreds anymore. So yeah,
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
and it's still fine.
Yeah, nice. Good to hear. Yeah, same with us. I think we're in the couple thousands now and still haven't really run into any specific issues. So that's good to hear. Um, it, Another concern a lot of people might have as they're like scaling this way of talking to customers is like it's almost the positive part, which is the expectations you get to be so much closer to the customer. They might reply quicker and not leave you in the inbox, so to speak. Like, but you have the reverse. Do you have the reverse of that too, where customers expect you to respond immediately? And like, do you have the team staff to do that, or is that not actually a real expectation, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's super interesting question. Uh, I, I think it's a combination of a few factors
Sure,
that are that are required to make this manageable. But in a
sure,
nutshell, no, I actually don't think customers expect you to reply instantly. Like customers themselves will do support to their own
sure,
customers. They know
sure,
it cannot be instantaneous. So I think it is manageable, but the it's important to have really good expertise and good product thinking to make sure that when you go back to the customer, you kind of nail it, right? And it- the one factor that we put a lot of emphasis on in terms of, like, for example, tone of voice
hmm,
is just be human. It is totally okay to tell the customer, "Hey, I'll get back to you. This issue
sure,
needs deeper investigation. I'll come back."
sure,
And that's super easy. Can even be done with a macro. Um,
sure,
but and I'll go maybe even a step further. And I think it's a superpower because if you instantly respond for all of your quick, easy fixes, if you're just like, "Hey, here's the answer," the customer gets used to go like, "Oh my gosh, these folks are on top of it." When you say, "Hey, I need time," you have the full trust from the customer because they're
makes
always
sense.
like,
Yeah,
they are always on top of it. When they say, "Hey, I need time," they do need time.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, which is a nice side effect of it.
Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. And then also to get kind of even more tactical about kind of how you're managing everything. Like, do you have support engineers like in every Slack channel? Or are they all just in Pylon? Like, what's the basically process for basically managing all the inbound you're getting?
Yeah, so getting into the, like, the actuals,
Yeah.
we have, like, the Pylon bot, and then we have, like I said, a bunch of people in those channels that by
Uh
default
huh.
get added when we create the channel.
Uh huh.
I'm talking from founders to customer success managers to all of our technical support engineers, to a bunch of engineering, and but we manage all of those channels from a support point of view through
Hmm.
Pylon, right?
Hmm.
So it's not that we are in Slack switching channels. That would
Sure.
become unmanageable for sure. And so what the customer sees is they drop a message in Slack, they get a message from a human in Slack, they have a conversation in a thread,
Sure.
until they get the thing sorted. What we
Right.
see is a ticket come in, getting assigned to someone doing a few internal notes, perhaps doing an investigation, maybe opening a ticket with Linear, coming
Sure.
back to the customer, dropping a note, continuing the conversation, and then move on to the next ticket, right?
Right.
And so we do have all of that set up so that we can manage all of these very, very effectively.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, there's also, like, on top of the humans, there's also a lot of automation to help
Sure.
us do this well. Uh, but yeah, it's a combination. But for the most part, support is
Yeah.
done through tooling.
Yeah,
if that
makes
makes
sense. Makes sense that it's like from the customer's perspective, there's like nothing go like it just looks like you're responding as if
yeah,
you are just kind of checking every single channel and hopping in whenever you see a
yeah.
notification, but really on your end, there's more going on. Makes sense. And then do you think about like, yeah, as you're at like a way bigger scale now, do you think about like basically metrics around this as another kind of normal concern as you're scaling is like, oh, I'm just like having chats with all these people. Like I have no idea whether it's going well or am I responding quickly to people or just kind of what is the state of things? Yeah. How do you think about that?
Yeah. So we don't do too much when it comes to like metrics like CSAT
Sure.
now today. And I think it's a very privileged position to be in. But honestly, I think it's out of the hard work of the support folks and really every employee of Incident, which is, I think, in general, customers have a really good sentiment of us serving them and thinking of them and
Hmm.
wanting to do the right things. And so, what I look and the metrics that matter to me from a team point of view is how can we make ourselves proud and how do we make our customers proud, and on top of that, how do we make sure that whatever we have contractually committed to a thing, we are
Sure.
doing the things right. So
Uh-huh.
going into the least nuanced part, the
Sure.
contractual commits, we do have SLAs with a group of customers, and we measure those SLAs and we measure the breaches on those SLAs if we have them. And if that occurs, I do this weekly meeting with the support team where we
Hmm.
literally bring any breach that has occurred and we discuss it. So now,
Hmm.
if you think about it, you can't have that many breaches
Sure.
if you have them to discuss them on a half an hour meeting where
Right.
you go through everything that has happened in the team. Uh, and so that goes to show that like we do pay attention to it and we care about it
Hmm.
and we try to close the loop very very quickly with the customer.
Makes sense.
Now, the on top of that, I also care about how quickly we respond to customers
Hmm.
without making this a hard metric. I think it can be quite dangerous to go into like
Sure.
first response. It is 7 minutes, but all of your
Sure.
first responses are a bit crap. Like
Sure.
we do that. It's a balance that we play, but we do measure it. We talk about it.
Hmm.
And funnily enough, a lot of what I tell the team is you can actually increase the time. Like it is okay. Are you guys happy with the quality of the answer that you're providing with this type of measurement? And the fact that we have this that buffer is actually super super interesting. And then,
Nice.
but that's like hard metrics to a degree,
Right.
like specifically the breaches.
Right.
Then on the other end, I actually, because like I mentioned, every couple of days, sometimes at the end of the week, I go through a bunch of the customer channels to
Hmm.
read through the threads. I literally just you can think of it as a spot check
Sure.
where I go, is our tone right? Did we go back to the customer in the way we should have gone? And if
Yeah.
we did, great. If we didn't, I'll go back to the team, maybe run a retrospective, maybe have a conversation around, hey, why did we miss this? What
Yeah.
happened? Yeah, stuff like that.
Got it. Makes sense. Cool. So yeah, so both like quantitative and qualitative. And it sounds like even though you're at this like huge scale with these Slack channels, you're still able to kind of bring some order to like understanding and measuring hard metrics as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's good. Makes sense. And then I know you guys also use the channels for it's still in a support context, but like say you have an outage yourself or you need to like reach out to a bunch of people. Like now that you have this direct means of communication with like a lot of your especially most important customers, yeah. Are you also using it in that way?
Yes, we are. So obviously, like we have a product ourselves to communicate with
Uh-huh.
customers, which is status pages.
Right.
Uh, but the when we have to go into a customer or a group of customers that are affected by an incident, uh, we do go through sometimes if you know if it's a big batch of them, we can use pylon broadcasts, which is super super useful. We also use it for our change log that we
Mhm.
communicate every week.
Yeah,
I'm honestly not sure how we would ship that change log effectively without the in a way that customers will read it every week
sure. Yeah.
without going that broadcast. And going back to metrics, one thing we
Yeah.
assess and we love it is when we send that broadcast, we get all of the reactions to that message in Slack. And
Uh,
so we can read the reactions and what customers are replying to it. It is incredible because that's a dopamine hit in the entire organization that can read through how customers are reacting to
totally.
what they just shipped. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice, yeah, and I think we on our end do a similar thing as well, and then see way higher engagement versus like an email newsletter
Mhm.
or something. Same, like speaking to this idea of like the channels are not just for support, and once you have this relationship with the customer, yeah, you can use it to like let them know about future product updates, send them webinars. Like you basically can,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of just be top of mind for the customer and get them more and more value. So that makes sense. Maybe just to understand like gaps before introducing a tool. Like, what were you feel like you're not? What do you feel like you're not able to do prior to like getting a tool to like manage all this, especially as you're growing the number of channels you have, the number of customers you have, people, number of people on your team, different roles interacting with the customer.
Yeah, I would say that the big thing was having almost like a holistic view of the customer through the
Sure.
lens of like making the customer succeed.
Okay.
And so what that means very concretely is w- where is the place where we can integrate our support with our CRM, with even ourselves, Incident IO, with
Mm,
Linear, where we put tickets for engineers, where we can actually like get the sentiment from gong calls into
mm,
one place. And so we were missing that. And now we have that view, which is incredible. Like the, I don't know how, if people haven't used this, the fact that you can have a ticket come in, immediately be triaged according to the plan of the customer that is set in the CRM or whatever other label that you might have there. So for example, we have this like if the plan of the customer is pro or enterprise according to Salesforce, we set up a different SLA, and
mm,
which then automation can pick up and tell us, hey, you're about to breach this thing, you need to go back to the customer. uh,
mm,
like it is incredible. That's how we manage it. And before this, we just had this gap where, well, we're just managing people in Slack. Like if someone doesn't detect a thing, ooh, that's a problem. The other
yeah.
thing is the bystander effect, where when you have a
Sure.
company that is growing and there are unread messages in Slack and everyone is doing support, you're like,
Yeah.
someone else will take it, but no one
Yeah.
takes it. We have a problem.
Yeah.
So that's one, and very focused on support. But then there was also we used to have our knowledge base in a different place. And that meant that oftentimes we would be writing a thing, then responding to the customer, but forgetting that the thing existed.
Mm,
And the customer would find the thing, tell us, hey, this thing over here says a different, uh, like has a different conclusion or a different take on it.
yeah.
And bringing the knowledge base into where we do customer support. It's
Mm,
incredible because now when we're responding to the customer, we have it there. And on the flip
mm,
side, we have a suggestion on, hey, do you want to add a new knowledge base article here
uh-huh.
out of this conversation with the customer? Uh, these are this is what makes superpowers.
Yeah.
Uh, if you like, I can actually talk about a couple other features that I think made a huge difference to us in the last year or so.
Yeah.
If you want, but in a nutshell, those are the
Sounds good.
ones.
Yeah, if you want to do a TLDR on some of those, that sounds awesome. And then I'll jump to some of the questions. As I think a lot of the questions are good as well.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So two other things that I can think about. One was internal threads. So when you're only in Slack, it's hard to do internal threads and link them back to the conversation that you're having with the customer. So
Hmm.
oftentimes you have a problem with the customer, but you want to have a discussion as a team on
Hmm.
what to do, and
Sure.
for everyone to actually remember that that conversation happened and what were the conclusions. We can have an internal thread attached to a ticket that we're responding to a customer. And so we navigate that in parallel. And that
Hmm.
has been like honestly just a superpower for us, but
Nice.
also in like leveling up and onboarding new support engineers because
Yeah.
they can have oh, I don't know the answer to this, and they'll have a conversation as an internal thread in a ticket,
Yeah. Makes
uh,
sense.
which is quite nice. And the other one was um, having this like rich AI in Pylon that
Hmm.
allows us to have even our product managers go there and ask questions about gaps in the product that we're having and where
Yeah,
to put some focus and stuff like that. Uh, it is like it has worked really, really well. So
nice.
those are two that made a huge difference for sure.
Nice. That's awesome. And yeah, I think especially we're excited about a lot of the AI use cases that are about like kind of internal stuff, or it's not necessarily you have to like try and deflect every question from a customer. You can use AI for like doing things as you mentioned, where it's like finding all your feature requests or like figuring out what to work on next
Mhm.
or helping you write documentation. So that makes sense. Let me jump to some of these questions. I like Steve's question here around like a lot of times in these customer channels, people are like tagging the people they think your customers might be like at mentioning specific people they think should be answering a certain question. Like, how do you, is that a problem for you? And how do you deal with it? Like, do customers just like, tag their AE even once they're post sale or like, mention a specific engineer because they helped them on the last ticket? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, they do that, and it I I I n I do not like to use "it depends," but it is true, it depends. Sometimes, the customer is actually asking a really hard question, and they
Sure.
know the engineer that has built the thing, and because they have done support or sometimes the engineer reaches out through the channel
Hmm.
before they release the feature because they know the customer wants that feature, and they go, "Hey, do you want to give it a try before I ship it?"
Yeah.
And so they build a relationship, and then the customer has a problem with that feature, and they go, "Hey, engineer A, can you give me, can you tell me why this is?" Or, and oftentimes the engineer goes, "I know exactly what they're talking about. Yes, this is a
Yeah.
problem," and they will reply and create a ticket. And usually that
Yeah.
reply, it's not a deflection, but it is a, "Yep, that is definitely a problem. I got you. I've created the ticket. We're gonna come back to it."
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
uh, Oftentimes, the if it's I would say in general, customers are actually pretty good with this, which is if it's a support thing, the CSM has probably managed them through the process and gone, "Hey, now I'm handing over to the support team. You're going to
Uh-huh.
be in good hands. If you ever need anything from me, just let me know." And so when
Yeah.
they get to, "Oh, we're coming to a renewal," oftentimes they will just tag the CSM.
Sure.
And then what we do in Pylon is we have the CSMs there, and we tag those tickets with the CSMs, and they can reply, and they're also onboarded into Pylon and things like that.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. I think, yeah, similar-ish on our end too, where, and Steve was mentioning it specifically as well, a problem from like moving prospect to post sale, which is for us,
Mhm.
like the AE is in the channel and then the CSM joins the channel after someone moves post sale. And sometimes the customer will continue to tag the AE on stuff. For us, the leverage is basically, it's the same line of thinking that you were mentioning earlier of like the customer can do whatever they want. And like to them, it's just like they can tag whoever, but it's on your end to like figure out. And for us, we use a bunch of like workflows that automatically route the issue to the right person, regardless of like where it comes from or who
Yeah,
gets tagged in
same.
the issue. And so, yeah, that's been super helpful. Where even if the AE gets tagged, the AE has like long muted the channel typically already, and it just goes like the CSM is the one who it shows up for in Pylon, and they're the one who answers, and so it's almost irrelevant who the customer tags. And then the CSM can go let the AE know if they really need them, or it's like a very specific, like personal, like something that requires that previous relationship. But other than that, actually try to not even adopt the mindset where it doesn't matter who the customer tags. Like you have the tooling on your end to like get it to the person who's
Yeah, yeah,
supposed
yeah.
to go
We
to.
we do that in a bunch of cases as well, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Um, then looking at some other ones. Uh, oh, someone loves your incident IO light and they want to know how they can get one. Um, Then there's a question about, yeah, does your team utilize Pylon across more teams outside of just support? Like, do you have a CS team, solutions engineering team? How do they use it? Are they tracking issues? And then, yeah, what's like the nature of collaboration between all those different folks who are talking to the customer?
Yeah, they do use it. We have customer success managers, solutions engineers that do use Pylon, and it works fairly well. We tend to have this like there's a nice assignee, and then there's a team. We try to navigate that with teams, and then filter on teams, and have different dashboards for different needs. One thing I would say is we have always uh, we have always wanted the, in case everything goes wrong, it should land in customer support. So we have a lot of workflows and automation to ensure that if someone doesn't respond to the customer within a certain time frame from one of those teams, regardless if it's assigned, if it has a team or whatever, we will reset all of those values and put it back into the new queue so that a customer support person can go read through and like, cool, I need to
Hmm.
ping this CSM because this is a CSM thing. But we try to make sure that nothing ever falls on the ground and no one knows about it.
Makes sense. We actually do the same thing where support's like the ultimate fallback, where if we can't get it to who we think is the right person, it goes to support, and they can always manually kind of put it in somebody else's plate if that's the kind of next action. Cool. And I see another. Oh yeah, go for it.
One other thing I was going to say, like even our engineers use Pylon. Like they will go to Pylon and respond there. So yeah, a bunch of groups will use Pylon here.
Nice. And then another voted question is if you could talk about, yeah, like the specific question is what percentage of your issues get resolved or answered by Pylon's AI? If you could talk about also just how you think about just deflection or like answering customers' questions, whether that's like a thing you do try to do for all customers or only for certain ones, and just how you go about that.
Hey, that's an incredible question. I do not have a number off top of my head, truly, but I would say that so one thing, we don't yet have AI respond directly to customers. I say yet because it might happen one day, but today I would describe all of our support is artisanal. The What we have is AI giving us an internal answer that we can read and go, cool, this makes sense. It's exactly what I would write to the customer. I've validated it. I'm going to respond to the customer with roughly this. Typically, people change with their tone of voice
Hmm.
so that it's authentic. And so that helps a lot. And I think a large portion of our tickets will have AI respond internally to us on
Hmm.
what the response should be. But we don't yet go the extra step and respond directly to customers with
Got it.
AI.
Got it. Makes sense. And then there's two questions that are similar around like just knowledge-based content and what's your process there, especially one question is around like, oh, knowledge-based content is typically written off of tickets, but now you have all these Slack channels and people are just saying stuff in Slack. So how do you like know what to put in your knowledge base? And yeah, just kind of what's your workflow there with the knowledge base?
Yeah, I would say that this part we're actually trying to get better at. So you're probably not going to get the best answer out of me, but uh, there are a couple of things that um, are relevant. One is we try to think a lot about the structure of the knowledge base. I think that's important. And then because in Pylon, for those that don't use Pylon, you wouldn't know this. For those that do, that you will know this. But the in Pylon, you actually have a very simple, very easy thing where you go through a support ticket, and on the right hand sidebar, you can have a thing to go like create a knowledge base article out of this conversation. And so it's actually not going from Slack to the knowledge base. It's going from the Pylon conversation into, hey, we should probably create a knowledge base article out of this.
Makes
So that's
sense.
our workflow today.
Okay, got it. Cool. That makes sense. Here's another good question as well. Like, the Ali was asking, sometimes when you're meeting customers where they are, like basically people have no overhead to submitting a ticket. So do you, or submitting, I guess, a ticket to you, but to them just like a messenger channel, it's so easy to send that. Like, do you notice volume is like very, very high, or do you have concerns about that fact? And does it, manifest in any way on your end? Like, you have to hire more people just because you're doing this, or how do you think about that?
I don't think so. I think, well, part of this is sometimes a bit of education with customers and telling them while they're prospects and whatnot, what they should expect and what our expectations are. Um, but I don't think our customers abuse the system just because it's an easy system, although it's
Uh-huh.
easier. Um, but I would maybe flip it a bit, which is the fact that it's easy means that you're actually getting more valuable feedback. And at times it actually makes it cheaper for you because you can ask a much simpler question to something that they want to know. So when this is my belief, I have no data to show this, but from what I observe, if customers have to write a ticket, and I know this because oftentimes I'm the one writing a ticket when I'm interacting with someone that doesn't do this through Slack. I'm trying to really write the perfect ticket to give as much information as possible and then send it. And so now I've lost a lot of time, which you could argue that's good on the other end. Then it gets to the other end and someone goes, okay, let me investigate. And they go 2 days without anything. And then I go, hey, do you have an update? And then they come back and go, hey, can you please send us this thing? And now I'm like, I forgot that thing. And then I send that thing. Or I'm like, I don't think that's going to be valuable. So then I'm arguing in a ticket that I know it's not real time. When you make it easy, a customer will go, hey, I'm seeing this problem. Can you help? And you go, hey, in order to solve this problem, can you tell me ABC? And they tell you ABC within 30 seconds, which allows you to move and actually fix the issue and come back to the customer. And so we don't really see, I personally don't see a lot of waste. Sometimes it happens very rarely. I might have seen it maybe a total of a handful of times in the last year. A customer is not quite, they don't really understand the model yet because they don't operate with other vendors that way or whatever. And they'll have someone going and bleeding probably what they do internally, which is like at channel and they ask a thing, or hey, they put in bold urgent, and then they ask a question which might be about like, can we have dark mode? And you're like, well, but it's also so very easy to go back to them and be empathetic and kind of get them to go where they are and say, hey, we love that you're asking about this. Here's a feature request. Do you mind not using, like, we want urgent to be like, we're gonna create an incident whenever you use the word urgent. And then all of a sudden they go, oh yeah, of course, like, yeah, like, we just want you to pay attention to this. And we're like, don't worry, we'll pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And over time they end up in the right place. So I truly don't see that as a huge concern on my side.
Makes sense.
Just be
And I think a lot of your answer too was basically around that, oh, like kind of support as a function isn't just about like um just like making it as just automating as much as possible, and just like it's actually controls a lot of the customer experience, customer sentiment, and like a lot of other things. So you like do want to like spend a lot of time and give good answers, and yeah, it makes sense. Another question, you kind of touched on this earlier, but I wasn't sure when this question came in, so just to retouch on it, you mentioned you have SLAs with your customers. You guys are, I mean, yeah, like business critical software with incident management. So like, how do you actually, more tactically, like how do you track them when it's coming from Slack? Like, are you having struggles basically tracking your SLAs because they're Slack messages, or just like how do you track that?
No, honestly, that's the easiest answer. We use the insights from Pylon. We have SLA set in Pylon, and then the insights just tell us. You can have a breakdown and filter on like type of customer and like even the attributes from the CRM, and so it's pretty easy. So that's what we do. Nothing really like more complicated than that.
Cool. Um, let's see. And then yeah, how do you track your team's performance like today? And then like yeah, how do you use Pylon to do that? Slash, how do you do it before, like in a traditional system? And is there any kind of difference in tracking given that you're doing support in this new way and with Pylon, or how do you think about that? You mentioned some of the metrics you watch, but I'm yeah curious if there's any more there, or like anything on like a specific like team management lens.
Yeah, like we don't do, or I don't do too much of like single individual type thing, and it's a small team, and so the it's a team that pulls their weight, and so I oftentimes you're trying to track performance because something is not going well. I think for the most part, I don't actually need to do it, but I do track, for example, volumes over time and kind of like the lag that it creates or the increase in response times, and that's all for the most part tracked in Pylon as well. We have a few that we track outside of Pylon because we connect with other data that we have internally with other tooling. But when it comes to be centered in what we do from a customer support, it's effectively, I would say 95% of it is in Pylon Insights.
Got it. Makes sense. Try to see if
And by the way, for those that don't know,
yeah.
like Pylon literally has, I think it's called Workforce in Insights. That literally has the entire breakdown of the team and the sources and or the channels and things like that.
Yeah, and so though it might seem hard because it's in Slack to like get this information out, like that's I guess the whole point of Pylon is to just make it so
Oh
we
yeah,
can
yeah,
count what your first response time and all this stuff automatically
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
And then
Before that, we weren't counting. That's the honest
yeah,
answer.
makes sense. Trying to see if there's this is an interesting question. Do you integrate like do you do anything? I guess I'll make the question broader because it's a little bit specific. Like, do you do anything with like the questions that are being asked in Slack, so to speak? Like, our high level, do you like try to look at them and improve the product or push them back to your CRM, or do you kind of what do you do basically with the support tickets after you now have them structured? Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. So as I mentioned, the product managers will also go into Pylon, and they will like do a review and assess. A lot of this is done through, I don't know what it's called. I think it's just AI or
it's
maybe
called
AI.
Ask AI. Yeah,
SKI, yeah, SKI, where I will go there and just start asking questions, and then um, it links back to the conversations that were had with the customer. And so we go with like, what are the themes? Then we go from the themes into real conversations. Then we go into the conversations, assess the sentiment of them and why it was important. Sometimes the PM might go into a thread and ask follow-up questions. Um, but like, yeah, that's how we go about it. And then that gets taken and ported into product. Um, there's also other mechanisms. I mentioned in passing in the beginning that we use Linear. We plug into Linear from Pylon. And so when oftentimes those tickets end up being tickets to product and engineering. And so then we also evaluate everything that goes through that. And on top of that, uh, every couple of weeks, I will go over with in this weekly meeting with customer support. I'll ask questions around, hey, what are the themes? Which parts of the product have been a bit, we had a lot of questions about this, so that I can bring them into the product side of the organization. And funnily enough, sometimes the sentiment and the data show different things. And that's because you might just have a really awful thread from the point of view of like, this was really hard. They were trying to do a thing that's at the edge of our product and the edge of an integrator. And like, oh, I don't think our product is actually. And then when you look for it, you're like, this is actually not a problem. It's that one instance that caused a huge sentiment thing with the team. And that's super useful to then go and assess and figure out. But for the most part, we do a lot of just like ask AI.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. Cool. And then we've actually gone through most of the questions. Feel free to ask any more if anyone has some. Maybe just I saw a couple more mentions of one thing around like basically like this idea of like other roles, not just support, being either the ones using Pylon or in these channels, and like what's the interaction just to understand between one, do all those people use Pylon, and then also like how do they all interact, like support, CS, solutions, like yeah, do they each tag each other in the channel or in Pylon, or like how exactly are they interacting?
No, so they typically don't tag themselves in the channel.
Sure.
They just move the tickets across people. That
Okay.
way, the customer doesn't know what's happening with the
Sure.
internals. There are a few exceptions to this, which are when actually it makes sense to tell the customer, "Hey, I'm dealing with this person," and you tag them, and then you
Sure.
assign them to them. That's one. The other one, is actually related with what we were just talking about, that I didn't mention, but I think it's important, which is the oh, what is it called? Feature requests that you folks have, where
Mhm.
both the CSMs, the product managers, the solutions engineers keep track of what's occurring and what's happening, and they will often send that to each other, and build upon what's there to figure out how best to go to the customer. But for the most part, everything is tagged in Pylon
Got it.
between these teams.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Again, on this, it's a similar point as before around like, oh, like you don't need to expose your internal way of kind of how
Yeah,
you do
exactly.
things to the customer, so they can tag whoever, and then you can shuffle things around internally to get it to the right person. Makes sense. Um, cool. I think that's like a lot of the questions, and we're also like kind of getting to the end of the webinar. Anything, yeah, else kind of comes top of mind that you feel like is worth mentioning about either incident or Slack support, or there's also one other question just around AI. If you have any perspective on like, yeah, the whole co-pilot versus agent thing, and it seems like you guys are definitely going for the more like artisanal support where it's way more helpful for the person to get super powered rather than just like deflect a lot of questions. Do you imagine like deflecting questions from like your lower tier or like kind of customers, or just what are your plans for that, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, good question. We have discussed that internally,
Yeah.
uh, and the answer for now has always been no. Let's not do it. Let's keep ourselves going back to the customer. I think it's not just about not trusting AI, because I think actually AI is getting quite good and quite powerful, and oftentimes gives us insights that we wouldn't have otherwise. To be
Mhm.
perfectly honest, but it's more about, if we can still do it, why wouldn't we? Because it allows us to understand our product better as well, right? Like every time you actually have to do the exercise of going through and reading what our AI has given us internally, and then go back to the customer. And when I say our AI, I mean the Pylon's AI, or the agents. But the I think that's still useful. There might be a point where we go, you know what, like all of these queries that come from either lower tiers or just difficulty of getting to an answer, right? If it's easy questions, the answer is very clear. There is the confidence level of
Mhm.
the AI is incredibly high. uh yeah, I think there's space for that. And so it's not that we have decided to be artisanal. It's that
Sure.
right now, we want to do that the way we're doing it.
Got it.
But we definitely see the value in it. I think it's honestly, in the end of the day, it's a superpower. Truly, like truly a superpower.
Makes
Um,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah, and just to share perspective across our customer base, I think it's a pretty healthy mix of folks who like have a similar mindset to that, and then also folks who like are much more like it's fine, like let it just take a first pass, like especially
yeah.
it's like, oh, someone's asking a question off hours and like no one's there staffed, like they might as well try and get an answer right away, and if not, then the person will come online later anyway to answer. And so yeah, definitely see a pretty big mix of like, also especially with a lot of our customers, since everyone's B2B, it's very much like a nuanced, even if I do it, it's definitely not for my biggest customers, and it's like for
Mhm.
like just help you roll it out to like a very specific kind of cross section of folks that you want this experience for. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
um cool.
One thing I really like is the fact that I can feed the training data. I think that oftentimes that's underappreciated. And in our case, we even put like GitHub repositories of like projects that are open source for our customers to use, like our
uh,
cataloging part and whatnot, where we have the Pylon AI ingest that, so that when it provides an answer, it consumes all of it,
yeah,
on top of the knowledge base and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, I see that as just an incredible superpower in my view.
nice. Cool. All this makes sense. Oh, maybe one last question at Cassie's flagged here, which is just someone's asked, is it fair to say that all tickets created in Slack are integrated with Pylon?
Yeah, yeah. I don't. What? Let me think. Are there tickets? No. Okay, the answer is no. I'll tell you why.
Okay,
There are some regulatory, like really edge case customers. I think we might have maybe 2 out of thousands, uh, where we can do that. And it is always a struggle when we're discussing with these customers because we
sure,
really want to do it and we're like, I don't think there's a problem, like they're a sub-processor there, and we go through the motions. And I think it's what it is, it's resistance to changing their own status quo. It's actually not
sure.
about regulatory. I think I can count 2. So like if you don't want to go into 0.00001%, I think no one. And all of the tickets actually go through Power.
Nice. Yeah, it makes sense that there's certain businesses that have rules and they're still adapting kind of this new way of doing things.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, yeah, Norberto, thanks so much for talking about how to scale Slack support, and yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I could talk until tomorrow about customer support. Uh,
Cool. Okay, thanks
bye.
everyone for
Have a good
coming,
one.
and have a good day.
Bye, folks.